You want to make sure to stay under the standard deduction of a single person. Definitely seek a professional that knows what they're doing so you can make sure to have it bona fide and enjoy the tax deduction of hiring your kids.
Do you know what one of the most underutilized tax advantage is for real estate investors that nobody told you about? Well, Janelle today is going to help us dive all into an amazing opportunity that too many lady landlords are not utilizing. Janelle, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. So glad to be here today.
Thank you. I would just love if you can just start off just sharing a little bit about you, the woman behind the CPA, but just kind of share a little bit about you, who you are, and then we can dive into all the tax and all the other information we're going to hit today.
All the things, right? So I love it. I am a wife of 14 years. I am a mother and an amazing bonus mother. My kids, they range from 31 to 24 to 12 and 9. And so I have a wide span. My husband started early, so that, that definitely helps out. And so I am also just a woman of faith. I am a woman of fun. I love to have fun. I love fitness. I like working out. I work out about 2 or 3 times a day. So within, I am an inquisitive mind. So I love asking questions. I love researching. I love just finding innovative ways to do things. So that's how my mind works.
If you are a working mom that also works out, I think innovative already has to come together with that, right?
It has to.
Just from a time perspective, I can only imagine what that's like to really make all those different pieces in your life fit. So that's very cool. So you're a CPA.
Yes.
Was that something that, like, when you were a kid, that you were like, I can't wait to grow up and be an accountant? Like, how did you even get into that field?
This is really funny because I think a lot of people would say no, but I think I'm one of those people that would say yes. I wanted to deal with finances and money. So funny that you asked that, because I think that the expected answer was going to be, no, I was not wanting to grow up to be an accountant. But in my situation, I remember when my dad was stationed in Germany when I was 2.5 years old, and my mom would take me to the store and she would give me money to pay the cashier, and I couldn't wait to get the money back. And so I remember when I was younger, I was like, I am going to be, my dream job was a cashier. I was thinking,
I've heard that one before.
I know, right? Have not heard of that, because I was thinking, wow, they make a lot of money. Like, people give these people money. So this is amazing. However, my mastermind plan did not work out because my dad was like, that is not their money to keep. So I've always been intrigued with math. I'm intrigued with numbers, playing with calculators and different things like that. So I would say that, yes, at a very young age, I wanted to be a CPA.
Wow. Usually a CPA is not the thing that you hear that, childhood dreams started with. What's really funny that you said about kind of collecting the money and things like that, I just have to say quickly, my younger brother, he wanted the dream job of being the toll booth collector, like that same purpose. When you actually, before Easy Pass here, when you actually had to give people like the money, and my younger brother thought that was like the coolest thing ever, was that you could just stand on the road and say, nope, you want to keep going, you got to give me money. So that could have been another way that you had turned out, Janelle. But your dad's right, you don't get to keep that money. So all of like your schooling, all growing up, was all just going through kind of finance, math, was always in that space.
Always in that space, yes. I was very one-tracked, very, very much so, knowing that I was going to be in a CPA. So I've already researched on how to become a CPA, and even with roadblocks and different things that may have gotten away, I was able to overcome my dad passing away when I was 14
Oh,
and
wow.
really having a hard time um, with my mom, whose first language is in English, by the way. And so,
Huh.
because she's from Korea. And so they met in Korea when my dad was stationed out there. So,
Wow. Do you
yeah,
also speak Korean?
a little bit, very little bit.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's so cool. See, so I love learning like these little things about people that sometimes are just unexpected. So interesting. So is your mom now here in the States?
Yep, my mom's here in the States. She helps take care of my kids, and I help her, so it's great. It's a really great dynamic we have.
That's really cool. I'm glad that you can have that multi-generational household. I grew up in a very similar space, so it was really nice to be able to have that with then as the kid with my grandmother. So that's I'm really glad that you have that that your kids can then have that experience with your mom too.
Yes,
So
it's
that's very
great.
cool. So you get into being a CPA,
Mhm.
right? So what are your primary functions that you do as a CPA?
So it does depend on which direction you go in with being a CPA. There is the auditing side, the tax side, and the financial reporting side. And so one of the things that I like about being a CPA is because the fact that we can go into different sectors within business because we know
Hmm.
them so well. And so for me, I started out in public accounting. As an intern, I worked for the state government. I worked in oil and gas. And so um, after a few years working in the industry, I was thinking, okay, I accounting's great, but I actually want to go in a different direction. And that's when I started out in becoming an accounting professor.
Huh.
And so I've been a professor at a college for over 15 years.
Hmm.
So I love it. I love being in education, but even more so, I love being a CPA to businesses and helping businesses, because the thing is that I was teaching what I've learned in industry, and next thing you know, I have businesses and business owners saying, hey, can you help me out with this situation? Hey, I have a problem here. And they would be centered around taxes. And I'm like, wow, this is one of the major pain points that I see in millionaire business owners.
Or even not even millionaire business owners. I
Any
feel
business
like the
owner.
regular people these days, we need some tax support too.
Right, right.
But the reason I asked that question was because I feel like for our community of lady landlords, which are real estate investors, is a lot of them will say, especially when they start out, a
Mm,
lot of our lady landlords, they have their W-2 jobs, right?
mm,
They go to work, they have their 9 to 5, and that's fantastic. But now they kind of add on real estate. And then after a little bit of time, they kind of say, well, but I have a CPA. It's a CPA I've been using for years. And sometimes we have to go back and say, but listen, things have changed, right?
yes.
There seems to be a CPA is a little bit different than just a tax preparer, right? Very, very different worlds, very, very different, education levels and all of that.
Yes.
But it's very interesting then to see that some CPAs don't always have a little bit of this niche kind of space where they could really help the entrepreneur, the person that's a little bit outside of a box of just a W-2.
Mhm.
And those of us that have now taken on real estate as really a side hustle, and some of us that have moved into that as our full-time really gig and been able to leave the 9 to 5 type world, we're always looking for the tax deductions. We're always looking for what other things that we could do. One of our members, Cavell, comes to mind specifically. She was a woman that was working down in Wall Street. Good money she was making. But she said, I'm giving all my money to taxes, and was asking her CPA, like, hey, what can I kind of do? And her CPA really gave her two choices and was like, you can either one, have kids, or two, go buy real estate. And those were the options this woman was given to save money, to save her own money from what she was actually doing to work. So that's why I always love talking about different things that our women can do to keep more money kind of in their pockets. Now,
Mm.
what we want to specifically talk about today is one strategy that we all hear about. I'm going to blame this on social media and Instagram and TikTok and all that, is if you have kids, that there's ways that we can put them to work in our business and be able to actually get benefits from that. So, just on a very high level place, Janelle, to start with, is there a way to, as a business owner, as a real estate investor, that we can put our kids to work and get some little tax savings?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, there's one thing when you look on irs.gov, right? You are able to see that it is encouraged that you hire your kids. The game has not been taught to us, like especially us as women, like sometimes when it comes to money, we're just like, hey, we're just here to spend it. But when we
Right.
actually become lady landlords, right? Which I love that name. And I love the tribe, lady landlords. What's important is that now we're able to be empowered with information that we can use to help us save on taxes. And so knowing
Right.
that it's not our fault, right? Because we weren't taught this in school. When I have a master's in accounting. I've taken some doctoral courses, and guess what? They never told us about hiring our kids in a business. Isn't that crazy that I had to actually find out by practicing disinformation in order to help others save on taxes. And so hiring your kids, a high level, what's important is that it is so important to hire your kids because one, you are able to teach them life skills, entrepreneurial skills, because guess what? The kids are looking at their mom as an example. And
Right.
so you're able to claim a tax deduction. Well, one of the benefits of having family labor, especially your kids, is that you're able to claim taxes and it won't be as hard as you think it is. Don't let
Hmm.
anyone tell you that it's going to be just all this red tape. You got to do this, this, and that to hire your kids. Now, there are some things that you're going to have to follow in order to have that substantiation, but we can talk about that as we kind of come down from the high
Right.
level to the details for sure.
Oh, no, I'm definitely going to ask that question. And then that is good. We'll come back to that in a minute. That's going to give all of our listeners time to go run and grab something to take some notes on. So that way they
Definitely.
can make sure I have that. Can you walk me through what are some benefits to the parents with having their kids as employees?
Some of the benefits. Just think about it. I don't know about you. I mean, the my kids 31, 24, 12, and 9, and especially my younger kids. One thing I realized with being a parent is that parenting costs money. And so
Yes.
parenting costs money. And just to think about it, when you work, right? Whether if you're working a W-2 job, whether if you're working your business or investing, you take all of that, your hard-earned money, your profits, and guess who's going to come after your profits first? The
IRS.
IRS. IRS is going to come after your wages. They're going to come after your profits. And next thing you know, who else is going to be asking for money? Well, if you don't want to get caught up in child neglect or anything, right? We have to feed our kids.
Right.
We have to support our kids' activities that they're doing. And guess what? I know for a fact that it costs money. And so what happens is that after the IRS takes their cut, now the kids are asking for activities, for lunch money, for sports, for any type of endeavor that they want to do. And us as moms, we want to empower our kids, right? And
Right.
so we give them the money. But here's the thing, what I want to encourage us moms to do is to flip it. You can have it to a way, you can have it in a way that you are able to have your business or investment
Mm-hmm.
pay your kids as an expense, as a tax deduction, a
Mm.
legitimate tax deduction and a write-off. And then what's left over will be less, and that's actually what is tax. You don't want to flip it to where you have your hard-earned money and then you pay taxes and then you pay your kids or you pay for your kids' activities. Make it
Right.
to a way where you actually pay your kids as a legitimate tax deduction. And guess what? out of their bank account. Because if you're, I mean, it's bona fide, right? Out of their bank account, they're able to pay for their activities. If they're doing
Mm-hmm.
soccer, if they're doing dance, if they're doing cheer, you're able to pay for those things out of their money that they've earned.
Gotcha. So if I can break that down, I'm going to give this as an example. Let me make sure I'm understanding this right. Let's take $100,000 because it's a nice round number, right?
Yes.
I'm making 100 grand. So I can either then lose, what would that be? Like almost 30% in taxes,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, okay, I made $100,000. Now I pay $30,000 in taxes. I got $70,000 taxes left. Um, Now I'm paying $1,000 for soccer, $1,000 for dance. Now I'm paying for all those things with the $70,000 that's left,
Mhm.
right? Or you're saying instead, take that $100,000 that I'm still making, pay my kids from that. Kid number
Mhm.
one makes 25 grand. Kid number two makes 25 grand. Now I'm paying taxes on $50,000 because I paid those two employees, my children. So I'm paying less money in taxes because now I'm only being taxed on $50,000. And then the kids kind of each have the 25 grand that they were paid in their accounts. And then that money goes towards the sports, the dance, the cheer, and all those things. Am I getting
Yes.
that right?
So what I want to do is make a slight correction for
Perfect.
2025 is you want to make sure to stay under the standard deduction of a single person. So $15,000 for 2025 is going to be the number that you need to
Mm.
pay your kids
Each or in total?
each.
Okay, so I could pay each kid $15,000.
Yep,
All right, that's good. I was
15,000.
paying my kid 25 anyways. So, all right,
Yeah,
we'll go with 15.
because what will happen is it will trigger them to have taxes due.
Oh, then the kid's got to pay tax, and we're trying to avoid that. So, gotcha. So 15 grand. That's really great to know that number for 2025.
Yes.
So, and does that regularly change, or has that been pretty standard?
Actually, it increases year by year. So for this year, for 2025, it's 15,000. Before it used to be 12,000. So if you go back and listen to old videos from years ago, that number may have been smaller, but actually it's been on the increase. So
Okay, so hopefully that will continue, but something good to know. But still, around that 15 grand is kind of that mark that to be made. Okay, so that's some benefits for parents here. Is that right now? We already talked about a great way to be able to save just in my own taxable income.
yes.
Are there benefits to the kids
Oh,
to receiving that money?
Oh, there's so many benefits because instead of doing the method of, okay, here goes your money for your lunch, here goes your money, they are able to have the life skills on knowing how to manage their money. Not to say that you have that you don't have any oversight, but of
Right.
course, because you are paying your kids, 15,000, then they are able to say, okay, this is what I want to do, or I want to buy this. And because they are working in your business, it's a benefit to them because one, they learn financial literacy. Two, they learn the responsibility that things cost. And I don't know, but I know my kids can sometimes, we can go on a trip to Disney World, before, and they didn't really understand the cost of what
Mm-hmm.
it takes to have fun and have activities. And so I think that it is a benefit for the children because not only are they able to spend money on fun things and activities and sports, they are able to take that money and invest in an IRA Roth. But I'll
Mm.
I'll pause that, but I'll just take it just a little step further and just say yes, you can take that money and actually invest into an IRA Roth. But I'll pause
I'm gonna come back to that.
this.
That was one of the things I have in my little note over here that I wanted to talk to you about. Is there at some point a reason why it would be helpful to pay a child over that single person deduction that would trigger them to have a W-2 that then they would have to pay taxes on it? Would there be a reason to possibly have them set up where they were paying taxes, had that W-2? Is there a need for that in any purpose?
Well, I would say not when they're younger because the thing is that you don't want to trigger. some type of audit from the IRS to where you're paying them, $50,000 to take out the trash or something, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so it's is I would say that until they become over 18, or
Hmm.
that would be a time where you can actually do it that way. But as long as they're 17 and under, we would want to be safe and keep it under the single deduction of 15.
Gotcha. And that's true. So can you still take that single person deduction over the age of 18, or is that only 17 and under
Oh, you can still take the deduction. Yes.
if they're your kid?
Mhm.
Okay.
And also, the main difference of why people do this is because when they're 17 and under, when we're paying employees that are not 1099, we're having to worry about payroll taxes, taking
Hmm.
out payroll liabilities, issuing out a W-2. When the kids are 17 and under, you get to cut all of that out. Now you want to have documentation, but because they're family employees, you're able
Right.
to, of course, have like a contract or something written because it has to be bona fide, right? But it
Okay.
cuts out all of the payroll taxes and all of the things that you have to do to formally file as if
Ah,
if you had a regular employee.
that's fantastic to know.
Mhm.
Okay. But I like that you can still use this if they're over the age of 18,
Yes.
right? That you can still take the deduction. I can see, and just speaking once again for our listeners that are within real estate, I have a lot of women that would like to at some point invest with their children. And one
Mhm.
of the problems that they run into is their 18, 19, their 23-year-old sometimes doesn't have enough work history or W-2 income in order to get a loan and then start their real estate portfolio. So it sounds like, in a way, once again, there's tax consequences that need to be discussed with the CPA, but
Mhm.
it sounds like there could be an option to say, well, I'm now 40 something, 50 something. I now have my income from my rental property. I want my kid to start theirs. So you know what? I can pay them that business. Now
Yes,
they have that extra income coming in. Yes, they have to pay taxes on it, but it gives them the availability to get a loan and start their portfolio at a younger age.
I like that. That is
So
actually.
kind of have to do the math out of
Mhm.
what are you making in that rental property versus what are they paying in taxes, for sure.
That's
But
good.
it sounds like a little bit of a great way to alleviate a tax burden being older as the parent.
Mhm.
Okay, yes, child will have to pay that and have to do some math there. But if that would help them at 22, could you imagine owning your own place, getting that equity, buying at the prices of a 22-year-old versus when you're in your 40s and 50s? Because one thing I know is that the prices are always going to go up.
Sure.
So it sounds like there still could be, with some good planning and some math skills, that there
Yes.
might be a reason that that could still be used. But I
Oh.
like what you're saying, that regardless of kind of age there,
Mhm.
that it would really save you from a lot of that administrative stuff, the payroll, the extra taxes for this, for running a business. It sounds like all of those things. I'm not just hearing money savings there, I'm actually hearing headaches being saved
Right.
as
Right.
well.
Yeah, because the IRS does take payroll taxes very seriously. So when they are 18, of course, we would, issue them the W-2. But that really is a good plan because if they were, it shows that they have work history, so
Hmm.
there's a lot of advantages, especially if someone who is 22 years old, they're ready to invest in their first property and they have that work history. I think that is just one of the ways to, have that wealth and legacy passed down from generation to generation. So,
Right, which I think is every mom's kind of dream
yes.
that they're
Yeah.
hoping to get to. I think, and once again, I'm in a place where I'm still pregnant at the time of this recording. I don't know, it might change by the end of this, but but even for that, like, one thing that, like, I've learned is, like, automatically I feel like when you see that second kind of blue line pop up, you're automatically starting to think, like, what can I do to pay this forward? What did I have that I want to make sure that now I can kind of pass forward to my kids? And I know leaving that legacy, that generational wealth, making sure that they're in a better position than we were, I think that's pretty much every mom's dream, every parent's dream. So I'm really happy to kind of see that there are ways to still be able to do that legally,
Yes.
within tax code. So let's go back to this whole setting up that IRA here, right? Fill me in. How does that work? How am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, so what's great about that is because when you are able to pay your kids when they're under 17, you know, and as the money is actually being transferred, right? We want to make sure that the money transfer into their accounts and that there is documentation on the work that they're doing. Now it's the kids' money. And so the thing is that what I like is that investing into an IRA Roth is they're able to take their money and invest it and allow it to grow. IRA Roth is basically a an investment where it uses after tax income. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not taxed on it again. And so the fact that they're 17 years old and this money is coming to them tax free, right? Because you're not having to pay the payroll taxes associated with it. They're not having to pay the payroll taxes associated with it. Guess what? They get to take that money and they get to invest it into an IRA up to the contribution limit. So, and when it's time for them to receive the distribution, they receive it tax free.
Right. Since it's the IRA Roth,
Yes,
right? There's the no taxes at that beginning, but then all of a sudden now they want to use that money later in life. The idea would be now 50, 60, 70 years old, they would be making more money. So you don't
yeah,
want to be taxed to take it out like the traditional IRA, right?
exactly.
So with the Roth IRA is what will allow you to still then be able to take that out and you don't have to pay taxes and you're able to invest it for that child's entire life.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Is there a age that they have to be before you can start that IRA?
Well, as far as the IRA is concerned, I'm sure that you're able to do it at any time, I would say,
Yeah.
as long as the money is there, the investment is there. However, there may be something like, because that actually triggered a question that I get all the time is, at what age can I start paying my kids?
That was where I was going next. So,
I love it. And so, at what age can I hire my kids? And so, what's important with that is that the IRS, I'll tell you what the IRS kind of deems appropriate. And
mhm.
then we'll talk about some creative ways as well too. So
Okay.
the IRS will deem age 7 the appropriate age to hire your kids.
Hmm. Okay.
So, they're in that first, second grade, they kind of have the cognitive ability to actually carry out some tasks. However, um, as we're looking at creative ways, again, these have to be bona fide. I have to say that as a CPA,
Yes.
but one of the things is that if you are doing any type of marketing, if you're doing some advertisement and you are including your child, you can pay your child to be in your social media post, right? Because
Huh.
every other company will do it, right? If they're,
Right.
wanting an advertisement and they're going to involve kids, well, if it's another company, they're going to have to pay or provide some type of compensation, and your company will too. Because if you think about it, right? If they're a baby or if they're, a little bit younger, if they're toddlers, well, just like any other company would pay for models, you can pay your child to be your model. Your company is a separate entity. So even
Mhm.
though if you are an LLC or sole proprietor, you're going to have to understand that this is a separate entity, a separate business entity, and that's what's going to pay your child.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to ask us to go back and define the word company. So what I loved is you said if it is an LLC, right,
Mhm.
which is it's a separate business entity in that sense, or a sole proprietor, which I'm pretty sure like every citizen, every tax-paying person is considered still a sole proprietor in that sense, but you could still use those business deductions with that. So to be that sole proprietor, you don't have to set anything up. You don't have to fill out forms, pay filing fees in the same way that you do an LLC. So it allows all of our lady landlords, some use LLCs,
Mhm.
some are sole proprietors. It allows both groups of people in our community to really take care and advantage of these benefits that you're talking about.
Yes, that is so true. And
Mm.
just wanting to make sure that your business is, taking in revenue is definitely going to be important as well too. So to
Gotcha.
actually establish that it is a business and a sole proprietor. And so I have seen both ways where
Huh.
there's a single member LLC or sole proprietorship Schedule C. You can definitely deduct your children on there.
That's fantastic to know. So, and ladies, we have a full other episode on how you should be using LLCs in your real estate business. So feel free to go back and take a listen to that episode and why that is important. But if you are not and you are still a sole proprietor and filing your taxes individually, you still can take these benefits that we are talking about today. So before 7, once again, there clearly are things. I like those examples of really from a marketing thing, from having that model, from those types of things in that space, and still having those tasks. But really 7 is where the IRS says, hey, that's kind of the appropriate age to start employing your children, correct?
Right.
Okay. Are there different tasks for different ages? You said that clearly these things need to be bona fide. Is that something that I kind of have to be able to show what these kids are doing at this particular age? And does somebody really kind of say, hey, you know what? Like, using that like sawhorse is really not appropriate for your 9-year-old, Becky. So you can't take that deduction here.
Right, right. I know we see a lot of things on on social media, so maybe there might be, but no. But I will say yes, that is going to be important to lay out a contract just in case. I mean, I think that as long as it's appropriate, and the thing is the IRS knows about this benefit and this quote unquote loophole, right? And so
Right.
it is going to be definitely appropriate. And just as you think about your investment business, right? I mean, of course, they can help you clean. They can help you with the investment properties. They can travel with you and be your assistant,
Huh.
especially, yeah. I mean, there's so many things that there's so many things that you can think of in order to find something for them to do, right? And
Right.
thing is that they love to be around their parents. And so sometimes I don't know, I know my kids do, they're like, oh, what can I do, mommy? I like to help. And so I would say that yes, have something written out to show these are the tasks that are happening and this is what they are actually helping me with. This is a
Okay.
compensation. Now you don't want to, you know, give them a major position like acquisition specialist,
Right.
something.
Right. They're not going to be my bookkeeper.
Right.
Right. And my 8-year-old is not going to be my bookkeeper. Got it. Totally understandable. Um, so once again, those like reasonable kind of roles. And I feel like that's something that, as you said, I love that you gave the example of like cleaning, right? That is something that, as with rental properties, I got to say, my experience right now is with my nephews and with my nephew and nieces. Cleaning is not exactly what I would call it. I feel like it's just moving a mess around sometimes. But I see what you're saying, like still having that like contract, making sure that those tasks are appropriate for an age with something that they could really do. Do you have to track hours to prove to the IRS that, okay, this child did work 20 hours in the month of March cleaning and here's his clock in, clock out kind of card?
I would, to be on a safe side, if there is something like the more proof that you can actually show, the better. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can do it on an Excel sheet or something that's written down or even typed up to say, hey, my child worked from this hour to this hour because, or they help you on the weekends, right? So you
Right.
want to actually, the more you're able to track and the more you're able to write down, the better substantiation the IRS will have, right? Um,
Right.
so I would definitely say yes, for sure. Like the more you can write down, the more you can tell, like, and of course, like it doesn't have to be like finite, like, okay, 12:57, they picked up trash and 8:03, this is what they were doing. But I would say just generally, if you can just, write down some of the tasks. And the thing is, I mean, someone's not going to do, an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old isn't going to do a task as quick enough as our
Right.
age, So the thing is that just being detailed and general at the same time. Like I said, with the time is going to be important. Of course, won't be able to do it during school hours or anything like that. But of course, just any appropriate time. I would say the more documentation you have and the more things you write out, the better it will be.
I think that's a pretty general rule for dealing with the IRS is
Oh,
documentation is usually well liked. But no, I'm glad that you also mentioned during like school hours, right? Like there are still child labor laws for reasons. And
yeah.
even as parents, we still have to be cognizant of that. But but that's really great. So so I'm hearing really within that tax benefit realm. Once again, I love that idea with the IRA, the Roth IRA being able to set your child up for that. I love how there are, once again, 15 grand per child to really be able to take those deductions and lower our own income. I love that we talked about a couple different ways that, hey, if that income helps that child in some way, once again, either be able to grow their portfolio or for other types of needs, that there might be like a benefit in there. Any other tax benefit to employing your kids?
So the sooner you can do it, the better. The sooner you can involve your kids in what you're doing so that they can see how you are wanting to change the legacy, the better. And
Right.
so tax benefits all the way around for the family. I think it's something that you want to get started sooner rather than later.
Janelle, thank you for mentioning that because I feel like it's more than just the tax benefits. If our goal for most real estate investors and most women within Lady Landlords is really to leave that legacy, to put our kids in a better position, that generational wealth, it's not just the tax benefits. It's not just the profit. It's not just the money, the income coming in, but really the modeling that, hey, mom went after what she wanted. Look at mom's business that she was able to create. Look what mom was able to do to create safe, sustainable housing for other humans. Look at how mom can run a business and really being able to model those things in addition to having some financial literacy pieces to that too. So I really appreciate your holistic view on that. Thank you.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And when I see it in the lives of my clients and how it's changed, either even their family dynamic that they get to involve their kids in the business, it changes the whole dynamic, and they don't because one thing that I notice is sometimes we can make our whys, right? Our children are our whys a lot of the times, like why we want to obtain more, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to turn them into our why nots, right? Why we're not investing, why we are not, following what Becky said in Lady Landlords, right? But the sooner we can involve them, then they still become our whys, and our whys get to see they're the
Right.
why, and that their legacy is the why. And so it's a great thing all around to use this tax benefit. Again, I will say definitely seek a professional that knows what they're doing, so you can make sure to have it bona fide and enjoy the tax deduction of hiring your kids.
That's fantastic. Janelle, thank you so much. I really appreciate you walking us through such a niche part of tax code, but really so important for so many of our members. So thank you very much for being here today.
So glad to be here, and let me know if you need anything.
Of course. For all of our listeners, I'll make sure to put Janelle's contact information down in the show notes. Feel free to reach out if you have more questions about using your kids as employees or for any other tax questions or for a CPA in the new year. Otherwise, please do make sure to subscribe to the Lady Landlords channel. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. And if you enjoyed today's episode, and I know you did, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. That helps other women be able to know that our community is out there and that they are not alone searching for financial freedom through real estate investing. Thanks so much, and see you back in the Lady Landlords Facebook community.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlord.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a lady landlord today.